Just in the ATM?
Initially, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was, I thought this is really hurting. So just had to explore all the time.
Yes.
Constantly shifting.
Yeah.
Going to my neck and going to my chest. And
So finding other places that you
Yeah.
could see if they influenced.
Wasn't working with the knee, so I thought, well, I'll go somewhere else. And
Great. So did it get more comfortable by the end? Or you more
absolutely, yeah.
fabulous. So it really worked well for you, for your learning,
For my learning, yeah.
to see
Yeah.
what else.
That it isn't in the part that hurts, it's somewhere else that's gripping or...
Which is not involved, would you say?
Absolutely,
Or, yep.
yep. Not
Fabulous.
available, yeah, not in my self-image.
Huge learning.
Yeah. The last
And
2 days have been huge for me in
Yeah.
the learning. So
And really important for when we're working for people, with people in FI or in ATM classes, is finding out what they're doing. And what they're doing is really also about what they're not doing. And how, if they can engage the parts of themselves that aren't differentiated in new ways, how it can influence the parts where the pain or discomfort or disquiet appears. So often we want to go to fix the knees, I'm not saying you did, but, or fix where the pain is. But in actual fact, if you distribute the workload and engage the whole system, then it makes the difference that makes the difference.
it was also the eyes. Sort
Eyes.
Of not straining through the eyes to try and sort of keep my balance. So just kind of just, okay, my eyes are allowed to move and they don't have to be rigid and fixed in concentration. And I know that it's a very ingrained habit that I grip it through my jaw and through my neck, and so.
So do you journal something like this, these moments for yourself? Yeah. It's really, can be really useful for your reflection, because Judy's describing, making links in her understanding where her focus was and how she was using parts of herself that, as she kept on exploring and experimenting, made a difference to what she thought was the problem. And it can be really useful to come back and read those, reflect on those at different times. Thank you. Okay, other comments, experiences? Martina?
When I was doing the sitting, I had totally lost my pelvis. I had all tingly soles, and my whole focus was somehow on the inside, on the outside, on the heels of my feet. And when I was sitting, I could do it beautifully in standing with crossed legs, straight legs. But the moment I was sitting, I was totally.
And did noticing that so you're describing that your attention was elsewhere and you lost your pelvis.
Yeah.
Did you notice that you lost your pelvis in the moment?
I'm not sure if I understand the difference.
Well, if your attention's elsewhere
Yeah.
and you feel that it's not possible or not easy for you, and you notice, pelvis, because it was quite, in standing,
Easy.
the pelvis is freer to move in space.
Beautiful.
And in sitting, it's actually perhaps bringing in what we've been doing in the other ATMs of circling the pelvis, but it's not moving freely in space. So it does require a certain shift. Other people find that? Yeah.
I tried it then sitting on the floor and putting the soles of my feet together, which was a little bit easier, but still. Yeah.
So that's interesting to notice that how when your pelvis was more fixed, it disappeared. Then what questions could you ask yourself in other, not now, but at other times, to remind yourself that maybe that's happened again, or what you could do differently in another context, so that we learn to generalize what we've learnt from one situation to another, one context to another, one environment to another. Thank you.
I was very aware that having Priscilla hold my head, and I don't think she was particularly taking the weight, convinced my back muscles I didn't need to do so much work to hold the weight of my head. And quite a remarkable freedom of movement in my cervical spine and my lumbar spine.
Great.
When I had my feet crossed and I was standing and Simon wasn't going with me, he just kept my head in a sort of more silent so that I could. I didn't know that I actually was like using my shoulders more. I think I was out of my comfort zone a little bit more or something, and so Simon said that my shoulders were working a lot. He saw that, but it's interesting. I felt out of my comfort zone, but I didn't feel my shoulders working. And even from the FI yesterday, I realised, I'm using my shoulders unnecessarily so much, like just too much. And it's like, wow, I really don't have that awareness so well, in terms of what my shoulders do, and I don't even realise.
So now that you've noticed that,
yeah,
how can you use that? Something to reflect on.
Is to when I do the exercises, maybe pay attention to what goes on with those muscles there, and see if they're
whether you're overworking, underworking, what relationships are occurring, how are you involving those parts?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, we didn't. Yeah, but yeah, it's like, oh, gee, that's why I have what goes on there, because I just don't even realise that I do what I do. Yeah.
And sometimes we discover those things on our own in moments in ATMs, and other times the feedback of another's hands, the mirroring, makes the difference that makes a difference. Okay. Hearing them speak?
About what they noticed.
Aha, yes. Because that gives you more information too.
In the case of the shoulders also, we had that my partner moved her shoulders a lot. I almost felt like I wanted to rather put my hand on the shoulders. But because we had the exercise with head, I didn't do it, but I felt like I just would have liked to.
So you're learning lots of different strategies that we use in perhaps a more refined way, and maybe not this way, in FI and ATM. And by highlighting particular aspects at the beginning, it's for a particular purpose. So you can notice that that's what you want to do. Then maybe in other experiences, notice is that always your tendency to put your hands where they move a lot, or to put your hands and want to observe and sense where they don't move at all. And what to begin to reframe it, to think of what would serve their learning.
That's what I wanted to experiment with.
Yeah.
That's why I thought hands on the
so
shoulders.
You're gaining lots of ideas for study groups. Find out, does it make a difference? Is it helpful? Is it not helpful? Because our hands can be saying, do you notice this? And in this particular context, both in standing and in sitting, what we were exploring was what's possible to find in between the pelvis and the head, of the relationship between the head and the pelvis. So giving the feedback here highlights a little bit. Because did any of you notice that you thought you were keeping your head still in space? Relatively still, and then when someone put their hands on? And that, as Danielle said, that there are the possibility as these small movements of the upper two vertebrae, so that the head can be here and the spine moves underneath, and the head can move on top of the spine, so you've got lots of different options for possibilities.
Yeah, I actually could feel that my body was actually gyrating around the head.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now we're going to return to exploring the shoulder girdle again and link it up with rolling the head. We just began that last week. So actually, oh, look. Does he look more comfortable? Yeah. So lying on the floor helps give up some of the work and the habitual activity of the nervous system that might be happening. And so we create the support for the person in the position that serves the purpose. Now so in this exploration, if someone's got pain in their back, often you may want to have the knees a little bit higher. I can't remember if Julie's talked about how the position of the pelvis, influences the position of the legs, can influence the way the pelvis lies. So you're wanting to reduce the weight of the legs so the pelvis can tilt backwards more, particularly if the spine is arched a lot. So you can adjust the position of the roller or rolled up mat, because we don't have enough rollers for everyone, to find the comfortable height for the knees. So I'm just going to sit where your feet are. So also you want to consider the height of their head, that the plane of their face is parallel to the plane of the floor as much as is within their possibility right now. So when you lift the head a little bit like this, so if the head is like that, you can lift the head like that, and often it can change the relationship of the base of the neck, which can influence the breathing and the diaphragm. Then I'm sure next segment you're going to be doing lifting of the heads and feeling that more. But ask your partner, is it comfortable? So here we'll have a little bit.
So with the lower, under the legs for the lower back, is that just if they've got back pain, or is that actually if you notice quite a big arch that you should still put the roller on?
So if it was an FI, what you would determine what you use depending on what the person asked for. And the more support you need, the more comfortable they might be, but the less free to move, less available to move. So usually, most people above the age of about 15, I don't know why I'm saying 15, but I'll just say 15, are likely to lie in a way where the tilt of the pelvis and the position of the legs may influence the availability of movements through their torso. Younger people usually have still that suppleness, and they don't really need anything under their legs. They've still got the adaptability present in their spine. So you'll learn in times coming about what supports, aids, props you use for what purposes. You make them comfortable, face more or less parallel to the floor. Ask them to roll their head and observe how pathway they take. You've had lots of ideas about what you can notice for yourself, speed they choose, how their shoulders are lying, whether one shoulder is a little higher than the other or lower than the other. Just get a general sense of what you can observe today about the different relationships. You can go for a ride, follow their movement, putting one hand on their head. Try your other hand but then actually try to roll their head, see what it's like, explore rolling their head, you being the active person. Now for most people it's very difficult to turn off the muscles of the neck. And to organise oneself to do this is really challenging to begin with. One little tip that you can use, if you feel like you're uncertain, is that hesitation, if you hold one of your fingers or two of your fingers with the other hand, it can help steady the board of your hand to roll across their forehead, to roll their head. So if I'm not quite got the coordination, it's not familiar act to me, then sometimes you can feel a little unsteady, so you can try it, see if it helps. The idea is not to roll their head a long way necessarily, but to feel the quality of their rolling. When we roll our head, as you know, there can be movement in the upper vertebra, there can be movement that connects right through the skeleton. And a question came up the other day about rolling the head or turning the head, and that depends on the person's organisation. But if we think about just simply turning the head, then it's more likely to turn, the back of the head's going to slide on the floor. Here, when we roll the head, the contact point is continually changing. The head is turning while it's rolling. They're happening together, but you get different degrees, different proportions of how much turning occurs, depending on what's happening in their organisation, in their neck, in their torso. Translating would be this. That's a slide. Relative to the plane of the floor. Turning usually is rotating about your central axis or space, through space. Mm-hmm. We don't usually think of that continually changing orientation as translation. Usually translation is staying in the same plane and moving that way. The head is rolling on the floor, so the rolling is describing the action between the head and the floor while the head turns. Mm-hmm. Hands moving?
Eddie's hands are moving when you
interesting?
Roll. And I was wondering if that's because his shoulder blades are a bit stuck, or if that is I guess all organisation are different, but I guess I don't think my hands ever move, and I'm trying to work out. So
I would rarely see people's hands move when I roll their head. You may see movement here in the more central connections, but he has no differentiation around his base of his neck, the 6th, 7th cervical and the 1st thoracic. His first rib doesn't have any degrees of freedom there, so that when his head rolls, it's turning that first rib. So you can see his thorax is rotating, turning his first rib, and I think that is actually pressing on his scapula, and it's through the movement of his scapula and his sternum, yeah. So see how his sternum's moving a little bit? You may see that, some people. And through that rotation it's pressing. So usually, if there is if there is freedom and differentiation here, the rolling of the head may be apparent some way. What you could do is put your hands under their shoulders and have them roll their head. See, do you feel that? So, what happens? What do I sense? Maybe their head doesn't roll easily. That's okay. You've still got lots of information that if you're going to give them a lesson, or this was part of a lesson, that you come back and find out if it's different. It might, yes.
When I roll my head, I think that there's a tendency to do that. Is that
Mm-hmm.
different?
There is. Because of the functionally coupled joints, the head, the 7 vertebrae, and the fact that the weight of the head is on the floor, there's an arc of movement that usually happens through space. So it's one of the things that you've been guided to notice when you roll your own head, is what's the pathway of your nose through space? Where is your chin going? Does the chin go closer to one shoulder or closer to the other? And all of those are clues that may make sense to you now, or may not make sense to you now. And even when I'm working with a client, I observe those things. I don't necessarily give them meaning, but they may gain meaning as the lesson continues, or not. So rolling the head, and you're going to go for a ride. Ask your partner to lift a shoulder forwards and let their shoulder rest again. The other shoulder forwards, let it rest again. Notice what connects. So you're going for a ride, one direction more or less, one movement, and then you're going to come back and outline the shoulder girdle from this orientation. The clavicles, the length of the clavicles, the line of the clavicles, what you feel. Can you feel the scapula here, the top of the arm bone, and what do you have access to around the back? It's not about necessarily forcing your hands under them, but seeing what's available for you to explore, and then follow the movement again. Come back, go for a ride. Notice if there's any difference in what connects to the movement of their shoulders. Okay, I think that's enough for now. So want me to recap?
Start from the beginning, please.
Yeah. So you're going to make them comfortable on their back. Find the height for their head. Ask them to roll their head. What can you notice about how they're rolling their head today? The pathway of the nose, easier one side or the other, whatever. You've got lots of things that you've been observing with yourselves. Try out rolling their head. Remember how important it was to have this action coming from your pelvis? And you can play with the different ways of holding your head, but in particular, this is like the possibility, the organisation that can give you most information in the long run. By far, there are thousands of ways to roll, well, hundreds of ways to roll someone's head. And beginning with this one, even though it's quite complex, you need to learn how to use your pelvis. Have your pelvis be guiding your arm. And feel the difference that makes to you having your head rolled, with it coming from the person's pelvis or coming from their arm. It gives a clearer skeletal connection. Okay. Observe them rolling their head. Roll their head. See what that's like for you today. Observe them lifting one shoulder forwards, letting it come back to the floor. Other shoulder forwards. What direction do they go in? What direction? So maybe it's this, or this, or this, or this. And go for a ride. Notice you can put your hands in different places as you follow their movement or track their movement. Outline their shoulder girdle. Feeling the texture of the tissues, whether you're on skin, muscle, bone. How can you make how can you conform your hands to help them listen to themselves and clarify this area for them with your touch, what's possible behind. You can even feel the shape of the neck behind. Maybe you can feel the spinous processes, sides. Go, and then go for a ride again. Just go for a ride. Have them roll their head.
Now, how you were talking the other day about someone's clothes don't necessarily inhibit being able to do that process. Does that stand for this as well? Like if we're wearing bulky stuff around here, so it's not about
Can we come and lie
digging
down?
in. Sure.
Yeah, make yourself bulked up. Okay, could you, somebody unroll the mat so it, maybe we'll get a, doesn't need one?
Who said that?
The medium one, thank you. So you can, so what in my practice, what I will do, people might think they don't need things or might think they're comfortable. If you've got any question about it, try it. Let them feel the difference. It's the way you're going to find out through your own experience.
Whenever I'm with my practitioner and she goes,
And let you
do you
leave.
want this, do you want this? And I always go, no, because I don't want to be a bother. And she does it anyway, and I go,
Yeah. And not wanting to be a bother is a bit of a projection. And you don't, but it's important to question that for yourself. Do you not say something to your partner in a practice because you don't want to be a bother? What we're here, I'm talking about, here we're interested in learning, and it's important to question why we stay silent, why we don't ask for a rest, why it is that we're doing what we're doing, and whether it serves us. Yeah, doesn't serve. If someone's not comfortable, then the state of their nervous system is affected. It's not open to learning. It'll be preoccupied with whatever relationship is not in its most neutral position or position of ease. So we do want to do that. So,
do you need something under your
Do you
need something under your pelvis?
So let's
just at the
have
back?
a couple of pads.
Yeah, a couple of pads would be good.
Yep, I'm human.
She's on.
This is a bit ridiculous.
No, not at all. No.
You don't look ridiculous at all.
Okay.
I'm just very rugged up.
Yeah, it's okay. So
So
could
you
you?
did my FI through my puffer jacket, remember?
Yeah. Okay. So now, what it might influence is the freedom of his neck, his head to roll. So can you roll your head a little bit? So, and come back. So what I see is he's rolling against his zip. So maybe, can I undo your zip a little bit?
This is what he really wants.
Okay. And roll your head now and see what that's like.
Now we take his hat off.
Well, is there a bump on the back of your cap? No. No, it's fine.
Stephanie, sorry.
Yep.
The bolster looks like it's at a slight angle. Is that just me, or did you do that on purpose, or am I just...
I didn't take a lot of time.
Okay. I was like, because looking
Let
at
me-
Simon yesterday, he is slightly at an angle, just ever so slightly,
Okay.
and I thought maybe you did that on purpose.
No. So if I... just leave your legs there.
Thanks for your attention.
Yes, thank you. Okay. So now I can... Oh, he's making himself... So now when I come down here and check with my hands, I can feel that the roller isn't fully supporting behind the back of his right knee compared to his left. So that is where I would bring it. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Just myself when I'm lying on the floor, if I have my knees further apart, my pelvis is much more comfortable. Do you take that into account sometimes?
Yes.
The roll is actually fairly pointless. It's too low.
Too low for what?
Just that this is more comfortable. It just felt the angle of my legs felt kind of accentuated in an uncomfortable way because it was low.
Well, let's see how we'll try it out. Okay. So I'm listening to the contact of my hand with his head, feeling the shape, the texture, the temperature, and now I'm feeling for the ground underneath his head. I notice there, this is my left hand, so it's my less. I definitely have a favourite hand. How does that feel, Simon? You're allowed to say terrible.
Comfortable. The pressure is good.
Okay.
I like the pressure.
All right, so let's try this.
It feels like it helps my neck muscles relax more.
Uh-huh. Just as well I didn't have garlic for dinner last night.
No, I love it. I don't believe in garlic. But.
Now, do you feel any... That's right, would have made it... I was hoping I'd make a point. Any difference now?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Like it's more or less?
More.
Okay.
There's less pressure, but it just feels more kind of aware.
So remember? Great. Maybe I'll try the other hand, see if it's different, easier for me. I can notice that. So you're just beginning to get familiar with this, okay? And what things make a difference and getting comfortable exploring this. You could ask your partner, is there anything I could do to aid your learning or make a difference in this? So maybe it's, would you like me to go a little faster or slower or?
The pressure of your hand feels like it's to the right, not centre.
Okay, so and I'm only going as far as I feel the quality is easy. How was that? Was that any better in terms of the pressure being?
Pressure's good. It just still feels like it's off to the right.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because of you or because of him?
Bit of both. Okay. So, where do I want to go for a ride from? Could you please bring your right shoulder forwards and let it down. So I can feel his shoulder moving forward. So we're talking about the close, the bulkiness of the close. Come forwards again. I'm noticing what is involved, how he uses his arm or not. Maybe I'll follow from somewhere else. And again. And come down. So leave the weight of your elbow on the ground. Ooh, I just noticed something in my left hand. That there was a relationship. Great. And now, so if I don't feel comfortable or I don't notice anything, I'm going to adjust how I use myself. So I felt the difference. One shoulder connecting. Does this one connect in the same way? Or is it the same trajectory? Ask those questions. Rest. Rest. Maybe I'll put my hands in a different place. Okay? Can you bring your right shoulder forwards? So here my thumbs are actually on his clavicles, resting lightly, but I can still feel the bone clearly. Can you feel your bones clearly? Your clavicle clearly? Okay, so no problem with bulk there. No? Okay, that's sufficient. Now if I want to feel back here, maybe the clothes, I'm sliding my hands together, both fingers towards his base of his neck here, just to feel the shape here. Now here you've got the musculature closer to the floor, so it may take time to get familiar with what's what. Whether you're on tissue, whether you're on bone. And what I'm doing is I'm pausing in each place and listening, sinking my fingers in a little bit. And first off, I might just want to get a general map out of his shape. But I can feel, what do you feel? Clearly, there is the spine of your scapula.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So Stephanie's not pushing hard, it's just distinct.
Mm-hmm. If I wanted to feel your neck now, if I really wanted to feel the tonus of your tissues, the texture of tissues in your neck, this would a little. Or I'd need more patience to sink, to let my hands, my touch extend through his clothes. I was talking with someone this morning about, it's about being able to feel what's happening in the pelvis and the spine from the head. It's a skill that we learn to do. That when you putting your spoon into a bowl, you feel the texture of what's in that bowl through the spoon. So the spoon becomes an extension of our self-image. Same with all tools. So with your hands, you are learning to link with their system in a way that you can clarify what's connecting in their movement and what's underneath your hands, what's within your hands. So can you feel, if I'm patient, that I can start to feel a texture of, yeah. Okay. Answer your question?
Yep.
Great.
Thank you.
Yes, Ray.
It strikes me there's a time and a place for a differentiating movement and a time and a place for a coordinated movement.
Mm-hmm.
So in all these explorations, the person is going to likely to favour one rather than the other, if there's or somewhere
There's
in between.
A possibility, yeah.
But you can't really say that's right or wrong, can you? Because they may be a differentiated sort of person rather than a coordinated in that sense, or they may be over-coordinated, not differentiating.
And can you coordinate your differentiation?
Oh, that's a cracker.
What, at this point in time, it's we're clarifying someone's self-image.
I'm just thinking in terms of the recipient as to how clear, if they're in that quandary as to that's a differentiation and that's a coordination, there could be some confusion as to why we're doing this and where we're going.
So this is I'm still not quite clear about your question.
I might bounce it back to Simon then. Yeah, okay, yeah. So I might respond, say, in two quite different ways. So if you want to try something first, I'll respond in one way.
So the first thing I'm noticing is that it's not easy for you to let your shoulder give its weight into my hand. So I've got to change the way I'm using myself if I want to come and support his shoulder or contour to his shoulder. Sorry, I've got ahead of myself. We've gone to the next part. Okay, can you go for a ride?
Yep.
I mean, can I go for a ride?
Yes,
Could
yes,
you
so
move your
yep.
shoulder forwards
Okay.
for me?
So in this sense, I'm thinking, oh, okay, we'll go for a differentiated shoulder. So I might go for something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Or, because that might be just in my particular image in that moment of time.
Yeah,
It might be more sort of like that. So bringing more of this.
I would say however you do it is however you do it at that moment. And then we could expand or clarify further. But however you lift your shoulder is how you understand lifting your shoulder at this point in time.
In terms of your thoughts of the next step, does that take you down two different paths?
Not if I'm observing how you do it now. So can you bring your left shoulder forwards? And I'm just noticing what I can see with Ray. I can feel his clavicle moving. I can feel the muscular of his pectorals activating. I can see his sternum moving a little bit. I can see... Go again. I can see certain things. Now, if I wanted more information, I could put my hands elsewhere to check, because I'm sure there's things happening that are less obvious to my vision than they would be to my hands.
Try my right knee, for example, if you could get down that far.
Well, I don't want to go off on another tangent.
But there is a,
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that's
yeah,
where it's
yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
He's saying it's, okay. Go again?
So, for example, what sparked my little interest at the moment is, my right knee's going.
Yes, I can see it now.
Yeah. So.
I can...
Yeah, probably, yeah.
So
that's in my little sort of head. Go, oh, okay, that's a bit curious there.
So if there is no unnecessary holding in someone's organisation, then it's likely that the movement will travel further. There'll be more parts of you involved. Yeah, one of the intentions. But here, notice what you notice. That this particular practice is more to get another opportunity to roll heads, so you get a bit more familiar, so it's something you can practice with other people in your study groups. To highlight the difference that taking the time to make a connection with someone and the quality of your touch begins to create a relationship and a rapport and a sense of safety that can evoke a shift in someone's nervous system. And when you outline the parts of their skeleton, it can help clarify their self-image. It can change the muscle tonus of the area. It can have quite significant effects. And then going for a ride with someone, if you're not sure where you are or how to bring your hands to them or what you're seeing, can help you with that. And then we're going to develop it further. Thank you. Does that answer your question sufficiently?
Yeah. It was sort of,
It's a broader,
Yeah,
and I understand
yeah,
it's a broad
yeah,
question.
yeah.
And if we get to the next phase, step 2 of this, then you might come up more.
Yeah,
Okay, so with a partner, do you follow the exploration enough to go ahead and do it now? Yep, great. So 15... Recap. Great.